morning, everyone. Thank you so much for sticking by for the second session of this morning. I hope you found the first panel very reinvigorating and ready to discuss more today. So as the MC said, our topic today is on Intra-ASEAN Investing, Propelling Regional Growth Across Borders. I can't think of a better panel really flying in from all corners of ASEAN to discuss these nuances with us today. Let me introduce to you one by one. So first up, we have Pak Arief Budiman, Deputy CEO of Indonesia Investment Authority, which really needs no introduction. It's our sovereign wealth fund here in Indonesia, managing about $7.8 billion. Pak Arief, if you'd like to introduce yourself, a few words. It's okay, no worries. Moving on, we have Mr. Frank Lee, the chair of the Startup and Innovation Member Subcommittee with Singapore Chamber of Commerce, Vietnam. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Frank Lee. So I'm from Singapore, but I run between Singapore and Vietnam. So today I'll be sharing more about the Singapore and Vietnam link.
And in particular, I think the SCCV is also a non-profit organization originally established in '92 by a small group of Singaporeans who travel and work often in Vietnam. And since then, they've already grown into a membership of about 300 members across that border. Next, we have Mr. Lim. He's given me permission to call him CY as well. So Mr. CY Lim, who's the Group CEO of Yinsong Holdings, if you'd like to say a few words as well.
Hi, I'm CY. We are in the energy infra and technology business, trying to move our business from primarily oil and gas into the greener space to hit our net zero targets.
His group actually operates across 18 countries around the world, spanning Asia, West Africa, Europe, and the Americas as well. So definitely lots to contribute to this topic. Next, we have Mr. Okna Sokpiset, who's the CEO of G Gear Group from Cambodia. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
So, hello everyone. I'm Piset from Cambodia. Consumer distribution and construction for the and electrical. Yeah, thank you.
I think amongst many aspects, their group is actually the exclusive partner for Hyundai elevators. They're the main supplier and retailer for all of LG Electronics in Cambodia since 2011 as well. Last, but very much not the least, please welcome Ms. Mylena Biva, all the way from the Philippines, who's the chairperson of Women's Business Council of the Philippines, and she's also the president and CEO of Felta Multimedia, Inc.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mylena Biva, as mentioned. I'm the chairperson of the Women's Business Council Philippines and the president and CEO of Felta Multimedia. I'm also wearing another hat. I'm also the ASEAN Access Ambassador, which I'll be speaking about later on during the panel. I'm into robotics, into augmented reality, virtual reality. I'm a woman in tech, and I am pleased and blessed to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So just wanted to set the stage a little bit. I'm sure you've already heard some of these thematics and statistics this morning, but just to ground our conversation around why is ASEAN so special and why is the intra-ASEAN trade ever more important? As I think the last panel already said, it is the third largest economic bloc in the world, just after NAFTA and the EU, with plenty of room to grow also. And with nearly 9% of the world's population being based here, of which half of us are over the working productive age, and expected to even grow further by 2030, it's really an exciting area of the world. And ASEAN matters economically because we contribute altogether $3 trillion in GDP. That's about 3.5% of the world's economy. And when you look at trade specifically, the average trade to GDP ratio is approximately 90% compared to the world's average of 45%. Of course, you might be surprised to hear exports to the US in particular actually doubled from 2011 all the way to 2020, expanding by more than $100 billion. So this represents both a greater dollar growth and percentage growth as compared to exports to China in the same period. Now, we want to dig in a little bit and understand, of course, that there are some challenges and nuances, and I really can't think of a better group to explore some of these topics together. Let's dive into the first question. If intra-ASEAN investments require understanding of unique characteristics, dynamics of each different member state, whether you're talking about cultural differences, regulatory frameworks being different, of course, the market conditions also being different. Maybe Mr. Lee, to start with you, can you share about what are exactly those unique differences and challenges on the border of Singapore and Vietnam in the work that you do?
Yeah, so I represent more of the business people from Singapore and Vietnam. So we are always looking at what the directions are coming from the government side, right? From Singapore side, I think there's a lot of push to go out from Singapore into the rest of the region. In Vietnam, there is also a lot of incentives that drives that tends to drive the different directions on industries that they're going for. So when we are looking at this between Singapore and Vietnam, we always look at that headwind, and then when we go down onto the ground, we really figure out what can be done, and we come in and sets the interaction between the different industries. So industries, we all huddle together, and then to see whether we can do things together in the market.
Are there any specific examples of those headwinds that you mentioned?
I mean, whenever, let's say for fintech itself, right? Well, we're going to the Vietnam market. There's some protectionistic things over there. So we have to go in and find out what are the challenges over there, and then we work with the government as well as the local banks, local financial institutions to do JVs so that we can enter the market together.
Thank you. And Mr. Lim, what about from your perspective, since you function across not only in ASEAN, but very much ASEAN with the world, how have your internal processes and even culture looked to adapt some of these differences?
Yeah, I think ASEAN is a wide economy, and a lot of us always makes the mistake of treating ASEAN as ASEAN like how we treat Africa like Africa, you know. But the reality is within ASEAN there's many countries and many different cultures, many languages, you know. But that lies the opportunity, right, to really integrate ASEAN, to be able to tap on every single country. I think the culture of the organization needs to be have the ability to be agile, right, adaptable to different member countries, and most importantly localized, right. I think localizing your operations and not use, you know, wherever you're from. Like for us, we're a Malaysian company, we can't use our Malaysian mindset to invest in every country and use a Malaysian to lead the country. So I think localizing it is very important. I think we believe that with you know, every country that you invest in, we will not have a foreign country manager for more than 2 years. Even if we do, it's for 2 years. So I think localizing, understanding the local engagement, and creating impact, right? Creating impact and adding value for the country when you invest in. I think that's a very key, you know, key criteria when you invest in a country. What value do you add for that country? And I think with that in mind and localizing, I do believe that there's a lot of opportunities in ASEAN. Yeah. Do
you have any specific examples of what that value add to a country might look like, perhaps?
I mean, if you look at, we talk about electrification, right? Different countries have different needs, right? You know, and as everyone adds charging points in all parts of ASEAN today, we're seeing more and more charging points, and Yinsen, we invest in charging points, you know, throughout. So far in Malaysia, but I mean, a country with more two-wheelers, for example, will need more two-wheeler infrastructure. You don't go in and add a lot of four-wheeler infrastructure when the country needs a two-wheeler infrastructure, right? You know, and all these things, right? You don't add a lot of renewable power in Singapore, given the space constraints, right? You should think of how to work with and collaborate with surrounding neighbors, right? To bring renewable power to Singapore. So I think you know, you must always invest the right things in the right country.
How about for Mr. Sokpiset, from Cambodia's perspective, and especially in the consumer business, you also partner with so many from Korea to help them and actually land and localize to Cambodia. So what are some of those unique challenges and differences that you see?
I think in ASEAN, if investors want to navigate how to move to ASEAN, I think it's very easy. When you see ASEAN, first, economically, you can see among the 10, the infrastructure is of ASEAN, everything based on consensus as a region. Secondly, in ASEAN, we have emerging market and you have a developing country. So in order to move to any market, it depends on the business, what you are looking for. For example, you cannot go to agriculture in Singapore because there's not many land, but you can have other country that have land. The country like Cambodia, we have different opportunities from time to time. Since we are the country that is new to ASEAN, as you know, we have been facing for war for many years. Just recently, 15 years ago, if anyone go to Cambodia for investing, you don't even have enough electricity. But for now, we have enough electricity to supply all the investors who want to do that. We're planning to sell the electricity to Singapore as well from the submarine cable. So opportunity is different from time to time. And one more thing, our government is very supportive to the private sectors. We have the Government Private Sector Forum, which allows private sectors from different fields to dialogue with each ministers of each area. For example, SME with the Minister of SME, construction with the Ministry of Land and Urban. So we have a different ministerial. And if the level of the ministers with the private sectors cannot solve all the issue, we can have a platform that the Prime Minister hosts the dialogue. So any decision during the dialogue between private sectors and the government hosted by the Prime Ministers, it will be the decision of the Council Minister to decide the change and reform of the law and regulation. So recently, during the COVID, we also announced the new investment law as well, which is very supportive and incentive for all the investors to go to Cambodia. Third one, I think a lot of investors move to Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. That block, we can say it is a Mekong area. So some countries, they already decide to have the country plus one, like Japan plus one, and other plus one. Meaning that if you set up the factory, big factory in Thailand, you can use Cambodian as some small industry that can support some production chain to the main factory. So each of the country in ASEAN have their unique point that we can complement and combine. Plus the first one, we have a lot of FTA include in ASEAN, plus the ASEAN plus Europe, ASEAN plus other country as well, Korea and something, on the implementation step by step. So this is the incentive that more investors have to choose ASEAN. Up to now, you can see the block of ASEAN. If you see in average GDP growth is around 5%, if I'm not wrong. But if you see the GDP in the Europe bloc or US, you still see the GDP is still declined to below 1%, while the inflation is almost 10%. Only the ASEAN bloc that is the opportunities for investors that come, and it is a window to the world now. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe building on that topic around plus, right? That there's no really one ASEAN country that can do it on its own. It's really about its multilateral partnership, especially in the context of digital transformation. I mean, this topic comes up often for this part of the world. I think in Southeast Asia, we recorded $77 billion in digital economy just at the end of last year. I have to come to you, Pak Budiman. Given your role with INA, and so much of your work is in attracting overseas capital and support to come and invest into Indonesia, how do you think about intra-ASEAN collaboration, and is that an important lever that you use as well?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. As you mentioned, INA, we have two mandates. One is actually to invest, but second actually to invite capital, primarily to Indonesia, even though we can actually invest across the region or globally for that matter. Digital is actually one of the primary sectors that we identify where investment and collaboration
in investments actually key. If we look into all metrics, you look into internet penetration, GMV of e-commerce, and so on and so forth, clearly this is an area where we have seen growth and we still see some room to grow. And there are a number of opportunities there. For example, with the ASEAN collaboration, at the very least, for example, to expand for some of the venture to expand regionally. One of the companies that we supported, the Traveloka, which is actually Indonesia's leading online travel agencies, they have moved into the region, tapping into 600 million. The 600 million population is almost 10% of the world population. Where else can you actually tap into? And clearly, in order for that to support the growth, we need not only, obviously we need digital infrastructure. We jointly co-invest with GIC of Singapore, for example, in Telco Tower. And we are working with a number of both global and regional investors to help support the growth in data centers, subsea cable, many of digital infrastructure. And finally, it's not only about digital in nature. For example, we do need to have some supporting infrastructure in logistics, modern warehousing, for example. So we see a lot of collaboration, not only in capital, but also capabilities where it can help us in Indonesia, and hopefully we can contribute some into the region as well.
Thank you. Maybe a follow-up is, just out of curiosity, whether or not these bilateral, multilateral discussions typically come fairly naturally, that these member states already know, let's come together and help to transform the digital infrastructure, or are there some challenges as well?
No, we are by nature, we are actually a micro organization. While the name says Indonesia Investment Authority, we have no authority whatsoever. So we are actually just like any other investors. So it is helpful, but at the end of the day, we look into the business opportunity, evaluate it, and of course, to the extent we can actually have dialogues with the relevant government. So for example, in digital infrastructure, obviously there is a lot of infrastructure need to support or to capture the opportunity, spilled over opportunity from traditional hub like Singapore, for example. It's not only just the infrastructure, but also supporting like the renewables to support that. So there's a lot of discussion and in terms of the interchangeability, licenses, cross-border licenses, for example, for energy export. So in short, it is encouraging to see that governments having dialogue. We hope to get something out of the ASEAN forum. But at the end of the day, I think we are operating under the environment, and we hope that the collaboration, cross-country collaboration, could further increase here so that there are more co-investments in the region.
Wonderful, thank you. Now let's zoom from Indonesia to the Philippines. Ms. Albiva, you mentioned with your many hats and your platforms, you actually are very much entrenched in how digital transformation is happening in the Philippines, whether that's developing educational video content to promote Filipino culture. I think you were even mentioning a fintech app where it's free for women entrepreneurs to download and actually access capital in order to start their businesses. How has intra-ASEAN collaborations benefited the Philippines' digital transformation in your view?
Thank you very much, Jen. First, I'd like to announce about the ASEAN Access, which is a single point portal for businesses to do cross-border trade. I will wear my ASEAN Access Ambassador hat first. During the Asia Trade in Goods Agreement after the pandemic, we were going to build and rebound our economies. And this is a free flow of goods portal which will provide low cost as well as deepen the economic linkages within ASEAN. This is provided for free to all businesses. And we also do business matching. All you have to do is just log on to www.aseanaccess.com. Here we have also an opportunity for you to find contacts, new opportunities, as well as brand visibility. And the keyword, it's free of charge. So this, I believe, is a good way for all our participants here to join in to the www.aseanaccess.com. For the Philippines and for my business as President and CEO of Felta Multimedia Incorporated, we have now been able to introduce augmented reality and virtual reality for upskilling and for human development. I believe this is a good way for us to attract investors. An example of which, how do you introduce electric vehicles when you don't have EV mechanics? So we are now doing the upskilling of our mechanics in partnership with the Technical Education Skills Development Authority. We're also working very closely, since the Women's Business Council Philippines is the women organization private sector partner of the Department of Trade and Industry. We are now working on the Arise Plus program, which now promotes coconut products and game development products for export, not just in ASEAN, but in EU and the USA. So I believe these are the interventions that our government is seeking and promoting so that we can bring in more investors in the Philippines. And finally, for the women, my hat as the chairperson of the Women's Council of the Philippines, is that we're using fintech. We know for all the businessmen here and the businesswomen here that 70% of our businesses is capital requirements. So we're providing a gender lens for capitalization. By just using a smartphone, a woman can have a loan from $100 to $200,000 just with a selfie, no collateral, and only the AI will be providing the creditworthiness of the woman entrepreneur. That's it, Jen.
Wonderful. What about Mr. Lee in Vietnam? Have you seen examples in how intra-ASEAN collaboration really jump-started that country's digital transformation as well?
Okay, so Singapore and Vietnam has always been working together for a very long time. And recently, we have been celebrating the SG 5010, 50 years of Vietnam and 10 years of Singapore-Vietnam cooperation. Right? And also, you might know that our Prime Minister recently went into Vietnam to talk more about the Vietnam-Singapore Innovation Park, the VSIPs, that has been going on for many, many years. We have 13 of them over in Vietnam, and there will be more to set up the industrial park, simply because Vietnam as a market, as a production base, there is also the plus one has helped it a lot. Right, because of all the COVID part, we know that the supply chain must diversify. So Vietnam has been growing in that area significantly, and all the Singapore business people are trying to capitalize on that to go into there to set up more VSIPs. Of course, with that, there is also a lot of digitization, the smart nation agenda, the smart cities agenda, the smart industrial 4.0, and all that kind of digitization must happen. Because even though Vietnam has a 100 million population, sizable population for production and manufacturing, we are moving towards an area whereby there can be a lot more efficiency if we use digitalization to move ahead. So definitely Vietnam must also embrace that, not just train their people, but also digitize them so that they can work better as the economy grows.
Thank you. And I know we have so many investors in the room, and so I have to ask, given that the market is so multifaceted, when you're developing your investment strategy to suit the specific need and opportunity of that member state that you're looking at, how do you consider for the trade-offs, and how do you actually design that investment strategy? Maybe Mr. Lim, I know in your Frozen business, where you guys actually advise on sustainable infrastructure investments regionally, how do you actually tailor the recommendations from an investment lens?
I think first of all, we started our sustainable infrastructure investments because of ambition. I think ASEAN, the ASEAN countries are ambitious. And why sustainable? Because everyone has a net zero target in mind. I think with that net zero target in mind, we thought there's a lot of opportunities in especially the sustainable energy space in ASEAN. And the beauty about ASEAN is that there's no one country that has it all. Right? Countries with the capital, the talent pool, does not have the land. Countries with the land may not have the minerals, right? So, we talk about export of power, the intra-Asian ASEAN grid. These are necessary infrastructure for the whole of ASEAN to get to net zero, and that will in turn spur exports and spur much more modern industrialization for the rest of ASEAN. And we felt we wanted to be part of this journey in ASEAN. I mean, just an example, right? There's minerals in Indonesia, right? Singapore has the capital, the talent pool, and the ambitions, but not enough land, right? And Malaysia, we're next door. we have land, right? So I think for ASEAN to prosper together, all these member states need to work together to help each other solve their objectives as neighbors. I think the days of competition with our neighbors, are too backward, right? No, I think to achieve each other's agendas, we all need to work together. And that's where the opportunity lies in these investment opportunities, be it renewable power, be it intra-ASEAN grid, trading hub of energy, things like that, right? So yeah, we're very optimistic, and that's why we started Farrison to do this.
So as you're designing these investment strategy, do you already foresee some of these synergies, regional integration taking place, or how do you actually actualize it?
I think a lot of the government are already in place, right? Singapore has put up, requests of proposals, RFPs for importing of power. I think regional member states that have access of renewable power in future, or they foresee they have, are looking at how do I export to Singapore and putting regulations around it. I think these are ongoing. And it's exciting, right? Because it's a matter of time that these regulations will be done, and I think there will be a lot of investment opportunities in that space. And as you produce more renewable power, it's just like data. When you give more data, you just need more data, and that's with renewable power as well. The more you produce, the more you need, right? And we are in a age of a digital age where we used to use rooms to store documents, we store in data centers today. So we need more and more power, and to drive efficiency, right? And that's where I think that there's a lot of potential in.
Now, of course, when we talk about so many different players coming together, sharing resources for the advancement of the wider bloc, these are really long-term considerations. So from each of you, maybe starting off with Pak Budiman, how do you consider and mitigate for these long-term potential risks arising as a result of intra-ASEAN collaborations?
Yeah, so a lot of our investment themes by nature is long-term. So some can range even, if you talk about, for example, just basic toll road or seaport can be 30, 50 years. So by definition, it has to be long-term. And now granted that we are primarily focusing on Indonesia, but we do co-invest with the global pension funds, global strategics. So I think first and foremost, I think it's no secret at all these global investors look for fundamentals, macroeconomic, political certainty, transparency, legal certainty. So those are basic fundamentals where people, most investors would look at. Incentives would work, even though it may not make or break investments. And a lot of us, when we look into, once we make a decision for a certain country, they also obviously look for mitigation measures. You can probably mitigate 3, 5, 10, but some of these investments are 30, 50 years. So you need to bake into some of your deal structure, liquidation, plan for liquidation, exit, and as such. Those are basics. But at the end of the day, I think many of particularly those first-time investors, given this uncertainty and long-term duration of the investments, more and more they look for a trusted, credible partner. And in fact, just a side story, this is exactly why we were established, right? We are not a rich country like Malaysia or Singapore, where you can have a few $100 billion of GIC or Kazan or Temasek. But having said that, many of our investment partners from the Middle East, from the North America, they actually convey that they need a trusted, credible partners. Some, party that professionally run, strong legal background and as such. So obviously there's too many risks for them to actually manage. So having a credible partner, it can be, for Indonesia, it can be us. We hope it can be us. It can be others. It's very, very important. There are so many risks where if you need to invest beyond 5 years, there's only so much that you can mitigate.
Now, of course, switching gears, we can't talk about ASEAN and the long-term horizon without also discussing the influences of China and the US in the bloc. Let's start with China. I think the figure is into 1994, China's GDP at the time equaled all of the ASEAN member states put together. Fast forward until now, it's at least 5 times larger than the ASEAN bloc. So in your view, how has the role of China affected intra-ASEAN trade? And how has your businesses adapted to some of those changes? Maybe let's start with Jigir, Mr. Sukpiset.
Yeah, I see from the hello. Yes, I think in the bloc as a business and economically, mainly we try to see what is economic of scale in order to reduce cost, in order to give fast delivers. So that's why. That's why every country of the world, they have a uniqueness. That's why the globalization theory have been launched. But the theory is not in practice anymore. In some country during the COVID, they try to survive by themselves, not the globalization anymore. And for me, between ASEAN, China, and US, we have to utilize all of this as input by different way and strategies. It depends on what we want to do for the production. For example, during the trading with LG have a few factories. Some they set up in China. They have a refrigerators factory set up in Indonesia. They have the washing machine factory set up in Thailand, and the small room aircon set up in Thailand, and the commercial aircon set up in Korea. So this show what? It shows that each country have their uniqueness and the cost efficient by country and country, logistic and interest to link to ASEAN. If you don't think of ASEAN at this point, which block that you should think of? I don't see any better block better than ASEAN. Even ASEAN, we have 10 countries that is economically different from country to country. But the uniqueness of ASEAN is we based on the consensus method. There is no big boss, there is no small boss. We treat everyone equally. That's why most of the time, whatever we move together. Everything that come to ASEAN before I joined the council, I always complain that why it take too long. It's too long because if anyone in ASEAN not consensus, we cannot move. So that's why for us as a bloc, if you see the closest one, China. That is the closest to us. Economically, between all the countries around the world, if you see some of the developing countries as well, in Europe, in US, even Chinese put a lot of investment there as well. And we in Asian somehow, it depends on the labor cost and what technology. Of course, you cannot, most of the people, they set up technology or something in US as a software. Even some company that have the software in US, but they have the hardware in China. So this show what? Show that it is to make sure that the cost is efficiency during the production, because a lot of product have been high and a lot of inflation globally raised a lot. So for me, I still see that as a business point of view, in terms of costing and cut costs, I don't see anything wrong between collaboration in each of any other countries. Thank you.
What about Mr. Lee? Given historically, of course, Vietnam is quite close to China.
Yeah.
Have you seen this boom in the Chinese economy also very much benefit Vietnam in specific ways?
So actually, yes. China's growth has been good for the region as well because, right, even though it has grown a lot, we are seeing a lot of China investors from the manufacturing space trying to diversify, bringing in the manufacturing out of China. So where do they go next? Vietnam, being very close to China itself, becomes a natural base. So you see Bien Yang and Bac Yang, these are where the industrial parks are. There's a lot of Chinese interest to grow their manufacturing outside of Vietnam. Outside of China into Vietnam itself. And also we can see that because Vietnam has, so China has about 20+%, right? So it becomes big, maybe it's too big, then we need to diversify already. to make sure that the supply chain is more better hardened, right? Because if everything is on China, what if another COVID comes along and then the border closes up? So there's a lot of thought about how to diversify into the region, and that's where China and Vietnam actually benefits a lot from it. So why Singapore does the VSIP and doing more of it is also that's because of similar reasons of this diversification from China itself. We are also looking at, because China has been growing up, the technology is all there. So in terms of hardware manufacturing, they are definitely there. So we are looking at also tech transfer. Where them coming over into Vietnam to bring the manufacturing process, they will also train the people. So now for Vietnam itself, it's also a period of training the skilled workforce to catch up so that we can do more manufacturing and move Vietnam to another stage.
Thank you. Of course, on the other side of this is the US. As I mentioned earlier, actually trade between ASEAN and US doubled from 2011 to 2020. The number is that it increased from 8.5% to 15%, which might be at odds to some popular view that US's influence is waning in this region. So I have to come to the Philippines, Ms. Abiva. How have you seen the role of US's trade and investment into ASEAN, in particularly boost the Filipino economy as well?
For the Philippines, the US has really been investing a lot of digitalization programs, particularly for the National Digital Business Agenda, which the Women's Business Council Philippines is part of. And as we are part of the Philippine Coalition for E-commerce, I believe the US is now putting in a lot of development on technology, a lot of knowledge sharing, and this is much more important than physical infrastructure. It's really the infrastructure of human development so that our workforce will be the workforce of the future. And as you know, the literacy rate of the Filipinos is 92%. And we, in fact, have a very strong creative industry. And this is going to be pushing forward more investors to come to the Philippines.
Do you have examples to share with regards to whether or not the Chinese have also really helped with the Philippines jumpstart?
Yes, definitely. Well, the Chinese are now, because of the former presidency, we had a Build, Build, Build program. They have now built a lot of bridges to put in farm-to-market access for our businessmen and our farmers. And this, I believe, has really been very economically development for our Filipinos.
And Mr. Lim, given that your operations extend to the Americas, do you have a point of view around the US's influence on intra-ASEAN partnerships further?
Yes.
For Mr. Lim, sorry.
For Mr. Lim.
Sorry.
I think it's very hard to see, US really weighing off totally. Like a lot of people talk about de-dollarization and all. Let's put things in perspective. I mean, it is still the world's biggest capital market. And what they've done very well over the last 100 years is the flow of talent pool has been great, right? The promise of hope and people, right? I mean, beyond capital, you need really solid talent, innovation to drive economies and to make yourself relevant. I think US has been able to do that, has been able to come up with new innovations every time. You sometimes wonder whether a Tesla would, an idea of Tesla would kick off in a country like ours, right? Would they be able to build the whole ecosystem from scratch? And that's something that Tesla has done in the US, right? So innovation, people, and opportunities need to come together. And I think America continues to have that. Saying that, I think China has grown a lot, right? From being very good at bringing technology in to developing their own technology. So that is something to look at. But it's hard to see US not being able to continue to have that influence because of their ability to continue to attract good talent and the capital pool there. Yeah.
Now, I understand we spent quite a bit of time discussing these topics that have both immediate term but much more long-term implication on the block. In the last few minutes that we have together, I want to come to each of you to ask you for any specific examples of where you think opportunities are going. These could be sectoral opportunities of ASEAN. These could be capabilities related opportunities. But I want to come to each of you to ask, where is intra-ASEAN collaboration going towards? Maybe starting with you, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, so I'm more in the tech space itself, and basically we are very bullish on the tech sector, especially in Vietnam as well. There's good developers over there, right? We are seeing 9 different areas of education, financial institution, Web 3.0, the future of work, hospitality, smart cities, healthcare, Industry 4.0, and sustainability. So these are the 9 areas that we are looking at to develop more business ties, more and support more companies to grow.
Thank you. Pak Budiman?
Yeah, from our perspective, and we believe this is probably more Indonesia focused, but we believe this is shared by many, if not all, ASEAN countries. We see 4 sectors. The first one is infrastructure logistics, maybe at different stages of development. Second one is digital, both infra and commerce. The third is healthcare, obviously with our recent experience. And finally is actually around energy transition, right? So just to give an example, we are, for example, establishing an EV. Yes, of course, Indonesia has the market and has minerals. But as far as technology, manufacturing, and as such, it does require at the very least, a pan-Southeast Asia investments and collaboration. And just slightly on that one, what we see in terms of collaboration, there's no general kind of like skills, if you will. But as was mentioned earlier, different countries do have some different edges. From our own experience, for example, we learned from the Philippines when we look into some geothermal opportunities here. We are currently working with a couple of Thai companies to look for some processing of pre-EV materials. So at least from our perspective, these 4 areas does pose collaborations in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Lim?
I think the diversification of supply chain out from China is a big thing for ASEAN. And for ASEAN to really tap on this opportunity, I think, and bring much more high-end manufacturing, high value-added manufacturing into ASEAN. We really need to focus on renewable power because that every single major supply chain is going net zero, and renewable power is the key to bringing much more investments to every part of ASEAN to really tap on this opportunity of diversification out of China. So intra-ASEAN grid, renewable power are going to be major themes for ASEAN. On top of digitalization, which is really a necessity today for any organization to work. It's no longer something that you can say, I hope to have. You need it to survive in today's day and age. But I think renewable power is going to be a major investment theme in the next decade because ASEAN will have so much opportunities to tap on, given the diversification of trade from supply chain from China to ASEAN.
Thank you. How about Mr. Suk, he said?
Yeah, for me, to be easy, I want all the people want to invest in ASEAN to see ASEAN in 2 blocks. ASEAN as one for sure, but ASEAN in 2 blocks. ASEAN along the Mekong River and the ASEAN by the sea. So along Mekong River, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand. So the opportunity from the ASEAN along Mekong River and the ASEAN other 5 is completely different by natures and geographic. So the ASEAN along Mekong River, I think, is good for the agriculture, agri-tech, green business, infrastructure business, because most of the ASEAN along the Mekong River is emerging market. So a lot of things have to be invested and built over there. And also the technology as well to link to the others. So the other 5, I think of fintech technology, everything to connect each others. So when you divide this into 2 blocks, I think it's easy to make a decision which one and which business that should fit into the ASEAN. Thank you.
And Ms. Aviva?
First, I'd like to again invite everyone to be part of the ASEAN Access. It's a free single point portal. And this will really be a game changer for your businesses because we do business matching. And again, it's free of charge. For the Philippines and for the ASEAN, there are 4 areas that we'd like to invite you in. First is agribusiness. We have all our member states have agribusiness, digital technology, health and wellness, and we have tourism and service management. If you all come together, I believe that ASEAN will be much stronger. Together, we are stronger together.
So with that, I think to sum up this morning's conversation, within this block, really no one country has it all, and we win in collaboration and consensus together. Please join me in a enthusiastic round of applause for our panelists this morning for that discussion. Thank you, everyone.